Good morning and welcome to the MAPS 4 Citizen Advisory Board meeting for July 11th, 2024. First I wanted to welcome a couple of new board members. We're thrilled to have with us Joy Turner, Ward 1, and Ryan Cross with Ward 3. We are a very fun, amenable group, so I hope you will enjoy this. We have a lot of fun and we take very seriously our responsibility. So thank you for joining us and we appreciate your commitment. So moving on to item 2, in items for individual consideration. A, approval of minutes from our June 6th Citizens Advisory Board meeting. Anybody has any corrections or changes? Okay, if not, I take a motion in a second. Please cast your vote. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item B, receive MAPS 4 monthly financial report ending May 31st, 2024. Mr. Todd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You have your financial report in your packet in its usual form. On the revenue side for the month, $12,184,213. Fiscal year, $140,130,665, and a total of $546,294,106. On the expenditure side for the month, $9,901,236. Fiscal year, $46,360,644, and a total of $214,490,559. I want to point out also that we remain at 2.9% above projections.
Okay, any questions? Okay, if not, I make a motion in a second to receive that report. Cast your votes, please. Motion passes. Thank you. Now moving on to item C, election of vice chairperson for the MAPS 4. Why did I say MAPS 3? MAPS 4 board. Do we have a nomination or a suggestion? We've kind of just been going down the row, so I think, Shay, you've just served in that role. So, Jessica, would you be willing to serve as vice chair?
I come.
Okay. Great. So I would make that a motion. Do we have a second? All those in favor, please cast your votes. Going too fast. Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much, Jessica. Moving on to item D, progress report on the MAPS 4 homeless project. Mr. Todd?
Quarterly, we bring you a presentation on what's going on with the homelessness, and today we have Greg Shin here with the Oklahoma City Housing Authority to talk about that.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, and welcome to the new board members. That's exciting. So some of this will be new information than for people that are just joining, but some of this will be a little bit of a recap from what you've heard, a summary from previous reports that I've been making. Here's a list of some of the deliverables and that we've already completed and the things that we have in progress. So under our operating agreement for MAPS for Homelessness, we were required to create a vendor pool by issuing an RFQ. That was done and that was completed. We were directed to complete an annual survey among our residents. That was done and completed. We were directed to establish a comment system open to the public. That was done and completed, and that portal for comments is open on our website. Anytime anybody goes there, you can call, you can walk in, you can access it right from the front page of our website if you go to the Housing Authority website. The housing plan is in progress. That's another deliverable. I'm going to be working with, meeting with Clutch Consulting and working on the plan to tie this into the Continuum of Care strategic plan so that we can establish how many more units of permanent supportive housing do we need in the community. We were also going to produce supportive housing projects, and so the first supportive housing project is underway. That's Vita Nova. That was the conversion of the Motel 6, which we already acquired. I'll give you some more detail on that. And the second supportive housing project, the site search is underway currently. Right now, I'm looking at different locations. And that site will feature also housing and services for people that are homeless, but we're going to focus on veterans experiencing homelessness, which is another deliverable in our operating agreement, is to focus on different subpopulations. So just as an overview again, we kind of pledged to deliver 500 supportive housing units, to renovate 1,500 currently existing public housing units that are badly in need of renovation, to preserve the affordable housing, to prevent additional homelessness, and to also create 150 workforce units over the period of the maps for homelessness allocations. And this is the first allocation was $10,762,400, and this is how we're committing the funds or have already expended them. So Oak Grove Apartments, we're committing $1 million to that project from MAPS 4. Creston Park, Phase 1, we're committing $2.5 million. The pre-development fund is $1.75 million. That's a revolving fund. We can use it and then we can put monies back into it. And so we're using those funds right now for pre-development expenses. Supportive housing project number 1, we used $3 million of MAPS funding, and that leaves us 1.5 remaining for the second supportive housing project. So a little bit of an overview here on what we've been able to do to leverage other sources. What we said in the beginning when we made the presentations to the MAPS committee and to City Council, and when the voters voted, we were saying that we would take the $10.7 million across each allocation and that we would leverage more than $400 million back in other sources of funding to stack on top of the MAPS funding. And so we pledged to do that, and so this is tracking what I can project so far just in the first allocation. So we're estimating that $8 million of that will go towards development, and that we have the 1.75 and some administrative monies that we're also using. And then the number of units, we're going to replace or renovate 446 units, and through new construction, we'll develop 332 units. But out of the 446, actually 159 of those will be new construction at Creston Park, where we're going to demo 159 units. So they're actually replacement, but they're going to be new construction. So, which leaves us, when we look at the total, we're estimating that out of $163 million, only 7% of that, MAPS represents 7% of the actual funding that it's going to take to do do all of these projects using the first allocation of MAPS money. So 93% will be other leveraged sources of funding. Just want to show how we're using the MAPS money as an investment to leverage all these sources, and I want to keep the CAB here apprised of that going forward, and we'll be able to do this project by project. And just as a reminder or refresher, this is the priority zone that we're looking at when we're looking at supportive housing locations. Of course, the Vita Nova project is at MLK and East Reno, but the next location that will feature veterans will be in a different district, in a different ward. They were not going to concentrate them all in one part of the city. And this just shows you right now the current projects. Creston Park, where we're allocating money, Vita Nova, permanent supportive housing project, and then Oak Grove. You can see how we're dispersing the MAPS investments across the community. And I'll keep filling this in as the projects go forward. And here's a little bit more detail on Vita Nova. And there's 75 units there, but it will create more than 75 beds. So more than 75 people will be living there that were previously chronically homeless. So that's why I'm just putting that 85 there. That's an estimator. We did use $3 million of the MAPS funding, as I said before. We expect to leverage back at least $6 million in other sources, and the budget right now is still being fine-tuned, but we're estimating that Phase 1 will be about a $9 million budget, could be $10 million, and that the MAPS funding will represent about 33% of the total development cost of that one first permanent supportive housing project, or about $40,000 a unit on investment. And we are trying to start the construction before the end of this year. The big news here is that through our RFQ to create a vendor pool, we have selected and engaged Script Architecture. Script and Open Design Collective applied to our vendor pool. They submitted an RFQ, and so we selected them as the architects, and they're engaging Wallace Engineering to be the engineers on the site. And now they've been going through the site with a fine-tooth comb, learning what it's going to take to bring the entire site up to current code and get the permitting process started. That's really great on our end. It's also driving the cost upward because the building's going to have to be rewired. It doesn't meet current code in a lot of ways, so we have to make sure that it does meet code 100%. And so Script and Wallace are on that right now. We're in what we're calling the pre-design phase of engagement. Oh, and we were awarded in the NOFO that was out from the Community Cares Partners and Community Foundations of Oklahoma. We received $1,048,000 as a part of the capital stack for this project. And in Phase 2, we will develop the event center, which is connected to Vita Nova, but this will not be really a MAPS project. There's no residential units in here, but this will be more workforce development. There's a commercial kitchen, and I just wanted to keep everybody, remind them that we're going to use that space also, which came with the acquisition, which is one of the reasons that we were very high on this location. Now, some detail on Creston Park. There was previously 159 units, as I mentioned, but we intend to come back with about 558 units of mixed income along Martin Luther King between 26th, 27th, 28th, and 29th Streets. Phase 1 will focus on 28th and 29th Streets. We received $1.25 million in GOLT financing, and we, with our consulting team from Baker Tilly, we're convening the architects and the engineering firms, and we're putting out an RFP for a general contractor in the next week or two for this project to oversee that. And we're going through budget revisions right now because some of the numbers were kind of stale from a couple of years ago, and so we're estimating that we have about a $2 million gap there right now, and $2.5 million of MAPS for homelessness money will be used in Phase 1 of this project, which will create 170 units. That's just Phase 1, and then the other two phases I will advise on as we keep advancing on this project. The other place we're investing the money is at Oak Grove Apartments, which is a public housing location right now. We're committing $1 million of MAPS funding there. We're going to use HUD tools called the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program and Section 18 to convert this from public housing to affordable housing. And there's 288 units there right now. In the first phase, we're going to demo 18 of those units to help pave the way for the land that will be used by OnQ to provide a new gas station and convenience store model right along Southeast 15th Street there, where they're going to pour a commercial pad that will require the demolition of 18 of those units. The other rest of those units, the 270, will be all completely redeveloped. Those units will not be torn down and built back new construction, but we're going to redevelop the whole site through a renovation project. And this is a little bit behind Creston Park. Creston Park is further down the road in the development, but we'll be going out for bids for a general contractor and a project development partner on this. So We did get the City Economic Development Trust funds awarded to us in $1.5 million. And so with that money through the TIF, we can begin some of the pre-development and infrastructure improvements. So right now, we had it projected at $66.5 million, but it's probably going to increase with the budget revisions that we're currently working on. And just to give you a little bit of an idea, you can see here that this is across from the Dell campus, and with the little inset there, the highlighted yellow part, that's where the commercial pad will be poured for the OnQ development. We're currently in discussions with OnQ about that. They're kind of waiting for us to get moving so they can get moving, but it's going to be a really good mixed-use project which will create economic development opportunities and add jobs to the neighborhood. And they're promising to create pathways, safe pathways from Oak Grove Apartments to the OnQ development site, where our residents will be able to go back and forth and access fresh foods that they're going to provide at the store and things like that, because it's really important to our residents. And there's over 1,000 residents at this location, to just try to give you the scale of what we're talking about with this and many, many children live at this site. And there's a Head Start facility also, which is part of the plan. So that was just a brief overview, but I'm happy to take any questions about any of it if you have any.
Questions?
I have a question. What happens to the residents when you're
doing the renovation?
Yes,
So at Oak Grove specifically,
both.
Okay, so at Oak Grove specifically, the plan there is that we will be able to help people relocate within the site as it goes in different phases. There are so many buildings there that we'll be able to have a building vacant and move people in, and then and we pay for all of this. The residents do not pay for any of it, and they're already being advised of the plan as it's in process. We've had resident meetings informing them of their rights and what our plan to do is, and we will continue to have those meetings. But they will be relocated within the site as the construction continues. And so then they will have the choice to go back to the unit that they were in, or they can stay in the unit that they're relocated to. Or then they even have the chance to relocate off-site permanently if they want to. They have the power, and they make the decisions in this, and we're informing them of their rights every step of the way. But we hope that they all stay and that they're the beneficiaries of the new development, and that's what we're informing them. So they're guaranteed to not lose their housing in this process. And they don't even have to be recertified. They're guaranteed to have the right to come back into the housing. I like that question. Creston Park, like I said before, most all of those units are vacant already, and they've been sitting there vacant along MLK. And so those houses will be demoed. There are a small handful of units that are still relocated that will be in the second phase of development there, and they're being offered relocation assistance to other public housing sites or with a Section 8 voucher to be relocated. It's a very small number. It's like 7 households or something is all that it is in the second phase.
I think Joy had a question.
Hi.
Do you have your microphone?
Yes.
My question is whether any supportive housing services, any of those sites are specifically geared towards individuals with mental illness?
Yes. So especially the permanent supportive housing locations, we're focusing on people that have been chronically homeless with disabling conditions, which could include serious mental illnesses or substance use disorders or co-occurring primary medical conditions that they may have. So what we find, especially because we're so involved in the encampment rehousing initiative with Key to Home, is that we're part of the outreach team that's working with the encampments, and we're directly housing people through a Housing First initiative into housing across the community with vouchers provided by the housing authority, so we guarantee the affordability. But when we're engaging all of these chronically homeless individuals in these encampments, we're finding out they have multiple disabling conditions. So the services have to be baked in. The case management, connections to health and mental health care on an ongoing basis. And at our locations, that I'm showing here, they will also be included. Services will be available on site, and we'll be bringing community partners in. We're working on agreements with that. For instance, in the second supportive housing project featuring veterans, we're already in discussions with the VA Medical Center here in Oklahoma City and with the VISN, which is in the region headquarters, which is out of Denver, to work it out so that we are going to focus on geriatric veterans who are chronically homeless, which is a new program at the VA. They will provide all the services on site when we establish that location. But project by project, the services will be integrated into the plan.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much
Thank you
for
very
being
much.
here and for your work.
All right.
Moving on to item E, presentation on design update, Maps 4 Beautification Master Plan.
So as this says, this is an update, and it is on the beautification master plan. Paul Reichbost is here from Guernsey to give you this update.
All right.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us today. We appreciate the time to give you a very brief update on what we've done so far, and we will be back to you in the coming months with the actual master plan. So I'm not going to get into too many project specifics yet. I also have Dan Spurley with me here. He will be helping me present the second half of the presentation. So the beautification project dedicates funding for construction of beautification elements across the city. Some of that budget has already been used to purchase land at 23rd and MLK. That was phase 1 of the project. So we are designing the master plan to cover phases 2 through 5 of the project. The proposed locations are follow along with City Council's resolution of the locations for beautification. Item 2 is a corridor type project, and we've chosen 2 locations underneath that corridor for beautification improvements under some highly used bridges. So briefly, we started off with an engagement process to go to the public and ask them about beautification across the city. We had a survey that was out there for a couple months. We received 3,500 plus individual responses to that survey. We attended 10 different community events. We held focus groups. We met with 3 different kind of types of groups, and we had 24 different civic organizations involved in those focus groups. We also met with ODOT separately and with planning staff, public works staff, and then obviously MAP staff to go over all of the engagement and get input from everybody. Just a brief highlight, we have a much deeper engagement report that we've presented to the subcommittee before, but we did find a few kind of things across the wards in the survey that kind of match for everybody. But people want community anchors, they want neighborhood identification, they want to support tourism and economic development, and then they want to bring a sense of playfulness and delight to everyday spaces. Also, we kind of asked for 3 words from every survey response. You know, what is your envision for Oklahoma City of the future? And walkability, safety, and kind of green and diverse and inclusive were the top across the board. So we use that to shape kind of how the master plan elements would come together. And we also asked kind of the generic, where are you proud of in Oklahoma City? And that was that'll impact how we choose different beautification elements. So Scissortail Park and Myriad Gardens were at the top, and then all of our different local business districts. So we use those as kind of a visual element for shaping the master plan. We also, especially in the focus groups, because a lot of these people are often leaned on for maintenance of beautification elements previously, they all want bang for your buck and low maintenance, high impact type of opportunities. So a little less soft landscaping, maybe a little bit more hardscaping that's easy to maintain and clean. So we use that to develop what we call kind of a vision board, a vision strategy, And we want to create people-centered places, and we want to have beautiful connections in between those places. Those are kind of the two target categories for the actual master plan. And with that, we created beautification principles, and these principles will be used by each design team and the 4 different phases that will become of actual design. And these principles will guide each team's assessment of their specific projects. So we have people, promotion, purpose, sustainability, and connections. And we use what we call the beautification palette to kind of go through each one of those 5 elements, and there's different pieces to each of the elements, and this is where I'm going to turn it over to Dan to kind of take over.
Thank you, Paul. Again, my name is Daniel Spurley, so glad to be here today. And I think the difficult part of really looking at beautification in Oklahoma City is that it can be defined differently by pretty much anyone. I think one of the things that came out of the engagement, though, that we really appreciated was that people saw the benefit of it being both for the community but also for visitors. And they saw that if they felt like they had a sense of pride in something, like we see with the local districts, Scissortail Park, that they're then going to want other people to enjoy that same space. So ultimately what we were attempting to do with creating the principles is really try to fine-tune this and think about how we create something that's measurable. So beautification is a little vague. There's a lot of different things that can go into it, and it can be applied in a lot of different ways. So we're trying to take this, kind of high-level perspective that can be interpreted very differently and create some sort of metric that we can then, take those designs and the proposals in these different phases and actually weigh them properly and make sure that they're meeting the community's needs, because there is a lot of projects, and this is going to take place over several years. So we want to make sure that there's consistency and that there's an expectation of how these projects should be run. There we go. So here, I'll just start showing you a few examples of the actual elements that might be related to these principles. So with each of the principles, we have a list of questions that essentially embody what that principle is. So for people, it's looking at, have you engaged the residents? It's, are there elements that make people feel safe, et cetera? And all of this is kind of outlined in a very specific way in a specific section about the vision and the beautification elements, about how they should be applied in these separate phases. So we don't want to necessarily limit options at this point. We want to provide a lot of imagery, but then we've also really thought about a high and low cost. So we've looked at something in between, the kind of like highest level of application of beautification, but then also something that might be a little bit more temporary, or something that is going to be an in-between phase that really might help push a project to the next step. So you'll see a lot of different options here, from something that is kind of temporary, playful, to something that's more permanent. And you're also, within the master plan, going to see examples of local applications of beautification that we've identified and that were identified in that engagement process, but also showing examples from peer cities or places that might introduce new ideas to Oklahoma City also. So for purpose, looking at this is going to be something that has meaning and actually is, it has intent behind it. So it isn't necessarily just going to be creative lighting. It might be creative lighting with the intent of safety, or seating and shade structure with the intent of providing new space where there might not have been existing community space. And then sustainable. I think this was a really big one that came out of that engagement, is looking at green infrastructure, but also thinking about that long-term process of maintaining green infrastructure, and really looking at what materials, what plants, and things like that can be used to make sure that this is something that is maintained but still has a level of ownership and pride from the community. And then connections. I think this is an interesting one because it could be interpreted also differently. But here we're looking at not necessarily a connection in the sense of building a new trail, but how can we improve upon our pedestrian paths on our existing trails and make those safer and make those a better experience for the community as well as those visitors. So from here, we're going to start going into the proposed projects. So to give you that quick overview map of each of the projects here, And then going into the drafted budget that we've produced, you'll see that phase one again consisted of the land acquisition, but then also the development of the master plan. And then for the budget, we really took into consideration those high, medium, and low applications, trying to find a common ground as far as elements and the costs related to them. And so for each of these potential projects, we started to really look at the overall impact and possible applications and materials that would be needed to make sure that it is a successful project. So I'm going to go over quickly some of the projects in the phase two. So these will be some of the ones that you'll see first. One of the ones was the 3 pedestrian bridges that cross over the interstate. I think everyone is probably somewhat familiar with these, probably more so as a gateway that they drive under more than a pedestrian trail. But I do think while these aren't necessarily the most attractive pieces of infrastructure in our city, they are really critical and they are really important to the neighborhoods that they serve. And these are important connections to community assets, to public transit, but they are used and I think are deserving of a better treatment as well as increasing safety while also giving our visitors and those driving on the interstates something visually appealing to see rather than, I think, passing under it and hoping that your car is going to be okay. All right, so here's the pedestrian bridge number 1. Interesting tidbit is that this is very close to the Oak Grove location that we just discussed a few minutes ago, so right near Rockwood Elementary. But for each of the projects and how they will be shown within that master plan document that we'll bring before you, you'll see that it's going to show the elements that we desire to see within that project. It'll show a case study and it'll show certain examples, but we are not ultimately saying that this is the piece of art, these are the trees, this is where this needs to go exactly. We are setting a precedent and identifying the stakeholders and the parties that will be involved in that next phase of design. So we're providing imagery, examples, and ideas really that will help set up the MAPS office for those RFQs and RFPs in order to make sure that they have a clear process for moving forward and soliciting those designs. So then pedestrian bridge number 2, you can see here very similarly, there might be slightly different elements that are suggested in each location dependent on the context. But for each of these pedestrian bridges, they're going to be pretty similar because they're designed similarly. And then here's that third one. And then to give one more just kind of overview of those examples, so showing here that kind of high, medium, and low application of beautification. This top right one is just yarn, so it's what we call like yarn bombing. It's a common practice that allows artists to come and kind of create a textile experience. It is a lot more temporary, but then this bottom left is actually plastic pieces that have been adhered to an existing fence. So slightly more permanent, but also very cost-effective application to existing infrastructure. And then this final one, obviously, it includes some green infrastructure. It requires more updating and obviously more cost to it as well. But those are things that we want to provide examples of in the master plan so as to provide ideas, but not limit how this project will actually come to be implemented. So this is another one we're looking at is the Reno corridor in Eastern, going to be a really important corridor coming up in the next few years. And an interesting thing here is that it's going to be essentially a gateway, but also currently connects some existing assets. So we have Brooktown, and then we now have the FAM, but knowing that in the coming years with the Olympic trials potentially, that's going to be an exit that a lot of people will be taking. And so I think it's an awesome opportunity to think about how we're welcoming people into that area. And this is one too where we've talked with ODOT too, because a lot of this is ODOT right of way, and that's where we've set that precedent with them about the things that we want to see in certain areas and within their right of way, and set the relationship up to where in the design phases, that they will not be blindsided by the things that are put in front of them. It's something that they expect, and they're willing to work with us, and that's a relationship we really worked on within this plan. So you can see here, again, opportunities for this corridor, that high, medium, and low application. One, kind of a more costly art installation that incorporates light, so it's improving the safety for pedestrians, but also kind of providing a landmark and something visually stimulating for people. And then bottom right corner, cast painted concrete. Obviously, the materials there are going to be a little bit lower, but when you think about how this can be applied and paired with other elements, this also can have a pretty impactful statement in an area. And then this top right one, low cost application, paint and lights. And so you can see here that it doesn't take much, but ultimately we really want to inspire these projects to include those people, include the residents, and think about how they're going to meet all of those principles by answering those questions and using them as a gut check throughout the process to make sure that they're meeting the needs of the community. But then we've also provided maps with something that they internally can use to make sure that those projects are meeting residents' expectations. And that is all we have for you today. Thank you.
Hey, any questions? Chelsea?
Hello, thank you for your presentation. I'm really excited to see all of this. It's kind of like in the brain space that I live in. We've got an Uptown 23rd Streetscape coming down the way. So seeing these visual inspirations is really awesome. Thank you. You mentioned earlier about peer cities. Are there any specific peer cities that you've looked at that you've pulled these ideas from that you'd like to
Yeah,
share with
I
us?
think one that I know is included in there, and maybe this is the one that's coming to mind because I put it in there, is I think Cincinnati is a common one that gets brought up. It's really interesting, and they've done a great job of using kind of their historic districts to really catapult urban development. So they've done a great job of kind of improving some less desired areas in really tactful and low-cost ways. And then another one I can think of is the Indianapolis Cultural Trail. So looking at how beautification along a bike trail can actually improve the economic development of a distressed area. Yeah. There's a lot more, but those are the two that I can think of.
And I would add that actually Oklahoma City, because we're becoming such a destination for public art, we're actually using our own examples.
Yeah.
And to borrow from Spinal Tap, we're taking it to 11 on how much public art we might want and how much more opportunity there is. So.
Love that.
Yeah, I want to point out one thing, that where it says gateway projects, those could be like on I-40, so they could be pushed out to the outskirts of town. They could be in Ward 4 and Ward 8 or 1 on the west side. So that's kind of a all-encompassing description right now, but that's still to be determined.
Okay, good point. Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you so much for your presentation. Okay, moving on to item F. Recommend approval of amendment number 3 to professional services agreement with Gooden Group, MAPS 4 Program Public Relations Media Consultant for an increase of $248,800, retroactive to July 1 through June 30 of 2025.
So as it says, this is the amendment for Gooden Group that we do every year. Remember that Gooden Group is the organization that helps us with all our groundbreakings, our ribbon cuttings. We haven't had any ribbon cuttings in this program, but for the groundbreakings, also the updates that we do, all the things that you see on social media, the videos and those kind of things come from the Gooden Group. Then also monitoring our social media to see who, I get notices about, hey, there's this concern, and we try and respond to all of it. I'm sure there's more I'm forgetting, but Katie and her group do a great job in keeping us straight.
Yes, they do.
And
We
they also
appreciate them.
assisted in all the outreach, helping the consultants, making sure that we're reaching all the people that we need to reach.
They do a great job for us. Any questions, comments? If not, I'd take a motion in a second to approve that contract change. Please cast your votes. Motion passes. Moving on to item G, recommend approval of final plans and specs to be advertised for bids for the MAPS 4 Diversion Hub.
Very happy to be bringing this to you
Yes.
today. This is the Diversion Hub project, and Rachel Bundy from Reese Architects is here to go through the project.
Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. First, I'd like to say thank you for having us out here again today. It is very exciting. We're very close, and we're excited to show you where we're at and hopefully receive approval to move on. So I know there's a few new board members here today. Just to familiarize you a little bit with the Diversion Hub, they are a nonprofit organization. They work with low-level offenders that are involved in the criminal justice system, involved in the court system, and they work with them to provide resources, to provide partnering opportunities, sometimes to provide essential amenities that they might need, but essentially they're working to help divert them from going back into the court system to become more independent and to just navigate some of the obstacles that you may go through going through the justice or court system. The site location is just a little bit kind of west from where we're at today. So the north facing is Boulevard or Linwood Boulevard. South of the site is Northwest 6th Street, and then it's bordered by Klein and Ellison. One of the things you'll see here for the MAPS funded portion of the project, kind of the building site that's outlined there, it will be the building and the site that it immediately sits on, and then the remainder of the site is still part of the Diversion Hub facility. It will just be funded in a different way. So a little closer in here on the site plan, you can see the building footprint, and the white area around it is the immediate site area that will be a part of the MAPS 4 diversion project. So all the sidewalks and connections directly off the building are encompassed in that. And then, as I said before, you kind of see the U-shaped site around there, which includes the parking lot and some additional sidewalks and access to the site. That will be part of the project, but it will be funded by Diversion Hub and Arnall Community Funds rather than the MAPS funding, so it is just designated in that way on the plans. And then we have a couple of the floor plans here today, and again, I know there's some new board members, but for the previous board members, the program spaces, the floor plan spaces have not changed. We're still providing a large welcoming lobby, which was one of the things very important to the Diversion Hub. The central spine core area there are for the client meeting and some small training spaces. We also have some behavioral health spaces situated directly off of the client spaces. There are some alternative court spaces located on the ground floor, some larger training spaces which can be utilized by Diversion Hub or their partner resources for continued training and education. And the west side of the building is some of their donation, storage, and collection spaces, as well as a small laundry space. But I think the takeaway is this ground floor is all client-focused spaces. And the second floor is the supporting staff and administration spaces. So we have offices, we have break rooms, we have some additional conference rooms that will be dedicated for the staff and the partners to use. One of the things to kind of note here, you see the angled spine in the building, and there is an open connecting stair. One of the things, Diversion Hub, they acknowledge the need to separate some of the staff from the client spaces, but they want to have a strong connection to all of the client spaces. So it is an open stair. It is secure, but visually open to allow them just more connection with the client spaces downstairs and can kind of see how busy it is and just activity and help kind of keep just keep a stronger connection between the staff and client spaces. We have a couple of the exterior renderings here today. Again, we have not changed the design fundamentally. We do have a few alternates I'll talk about at the end of the presentation, but the overall look and feel and design of the building will be maintained, really depending on which alternates we go with, you'll still have the same design, look, and feel for the building. So here's just another view of the main entry going up to the diversion hub. So final steps, we have issued the construction documents and the project manual specifications to MAPS. We are going through the approval process with the public entities. The goal is for the documents to be put out to bid next week after city council meeting. And just kind of some behind the scenes work, we are conducting some furniture coordination with the diversion hub. That portion will not be funded by MAPS funding, but that is a piece we're working on. And then the public art piece is another item that we've been working through, and my understanding is the artists have been selected for that. And just a few interior views here, interior view of the main lobby, and we kind of highlighted the location. There will be some public art located on the walls of the lobby space, and there'll be an art ceiling element in the lobby as well. And one of the things Diversion Hub also wanted to prioritize was just making sure that it was a welcoming and comfortable space for their clients. And so we worked to really open up this space, provide a lot of natural light. And this image shows the client meeting room corridor, and you can see a little bit of an opening in the floor there, one of the connections between the ground floor and the second floor. And this wall location is where there will be a mural painted on there as part of the public art piece. So it will be another element that connects between the ground floor and the second floor. As far as next steps go, we are hoping for approval today and working towards approval with City Council for next week. The plans go out to bid next week. We would be conducting a pre-bid meeting in July, towards the end of July. We would be collecting bids early in August with the intent to select and award the contract to a contractor in August and get construction underway in September of this year. As far as the budget goes, what we have here listed, the $13,023,400 is the MAPS portion that was dedicated for construction. There was also $1 million allocated for land acquisition. The land was acquired through Diversion Hub and the Arnall Community Funds. So that $1 million has now been put into our construction budget to use. So you see the total there at $14,023,400. We received updated cost estimates as far as kind of splitting the building and the site piece. So we have our current construction estimate coming in at $13,947,000 and some change there. MAPS has also sent some funds to OG&E to start some utility relocations on the site, so that's accounted for there as well. And then on the right, we do have a list of alternates that we are including in the project. These are add alternates, and so the intent is we are trying to give ourselves some options so that on bid day we know we'll receive a bid that is within budget, but we do, there are a few things that we'd like to include in the project that are listed there in the alternates, so that will give us options on bid day if we're able to accept any of those alternates, able to fund those alternates either through the MAPS 4 funding or if there are additional funding resources through Diversion Hub or Arnall Community Funds for them to consider. We then have those bids collected, know how much those items would cost, and could assess if we'll be able to include them in the project or not. But I will note that if we were not able to, essentially provide those alternates, you still have the fundamental building with all of the spaces and the functions and the program spaces that the diversion hub is needing and wanting right now. So we've worked closely with them on what options were acceptable for alternates or not.
Okay,
That is the end
thank
of the
you so much.
presentation, of course.
Any questions? This looks great. Ready to get rolling.
Yeah, we're
Okay,
excited.
nothing? None? Okay. Thank you so much. So we need a motion and a second to approve the final plans and specs. Please cast your votes. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. David, do you want to, for these next three items, do you want to just explain kind of what all of these three do, and then we can just knock them out?
Okay, I can. Yeah, so the next items are related to the diversion hub. So item H is the lease and management agreement. This is typical and like we did for the wellness centers with MAPS 3. Anytime we have an operator, we have an agreement like this, and it sets out how we will repair certain things, and they're responsible for day-to-day items and all of that. It's basically a lease agreement. Then item I is the real estate donation agreement. So the diversion hub of Oklahoma County is donating that land that's immediately around the building. If you saw on that site plan, you saw NIC not in contract. They are keeping the parking lot areas. So that takes us to the next one is J, which is an access parking utility and stormwater drainage easement. So that allows the diversion hub and the city, so to speak, to access that parking lot and use the parking lots for the diversion hub. And then K is a temporary access and construction easement. So this allows the contractor to use what is essentially will remain the diversion hub property. It allows them, the contractor, to use that for staging and storage and parking for their employees, and that is a temporary situation. As soon as that's done, that goes away.
Okay, thank you. I thought it might be helpful to know how those pieces fit together, but we'll take them individually. Excuse me. So going to item H, recommend approval of lease and management agreement by and among Oklahoma County Diversion Hub, the City of Oklahoma City Public Property Authority, and the City of Oklahoma City. We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item I, approval of the real estate donation agreement. Okay, cast your votes. Motion passes. Item J, the approval for the access public parking, utility, and water. Motion passes. And finally, K, recommend approval of the temporary access and construction easement. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to item L, recommend approval of resolution extending time to award contract on the MAPS 4 Henrietta B. Foster selective demolition, awarding contract to Midwest Wrecking for $164,840 and approving contract and bond.
So I want to make clear that this is selective interior demolition. We are not demolishing the Henrietta B. Foster Center. It is for us to be able to clear out the interior, to help the architect understand what the structural system looks like and the various things within the building. It also helps us get ahead of the project and save, I don't know, 10 or 15% by having a GC who would hire this same company and then tack on additional funding. So we went out and did a demolition project on its own and we recommend approval.
Okay, any questions? Okay, take a motion in a second. Cast your votes. Motion passes, thank you. Item M, recommend approval of change order number 11 for the MAPS 4 Fairgrounds Coliseum for a decrease of $105,872.
Right, this is one of the good change orders with the decrease on it, but Todd Gralla is here to give you a quick update on where the project is and then go through this change order.
Welcome, Todd.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and board members. Pleasure to be here. As David Todd mentioned, it is a very good change order. We continue a stream of those. I wanted to really quickly give you an update of our project construction status out at Fair Park. We are moving along really rapidly now that we've had some good dry weather. We did have quite a bit of rain back in April and May. Most of the roofing is now complete. We are looking at it from Gordon Cooper. This is from driving in from May Avenue. We are about to begin the completion of all the major exterior steel work. So we'll close in the walkout area where we've backed out all of our construction equipment, close in the front, finish the roof, and begin working towards drawing in the remainder of the building by the middle of August. This is along Gordon Cooper. You can see that some of the exterior waterproofing and insulation in final installation. And as we go around the building towards the view from I-240, you can see our phenolic panels, that exterior weather barrier rain screen going up. And on this side, it's going to have a giant OKC that you can see all the way from the highway. So Flintco is moving along really rapidly on the exterior envelope. And again, we anticipate that by mid-August, that building will be dried in and we'll be primarily working on the interior. Again, that shot from that front entry where we're going to finish the steel work over the next couple of weeks. We were out on July 3rd. They were completing a last couple of interior slab pours. So almost all the interior floors, or at least the bases, are in. And they'll begin working on their more detailed finishes once we get dried in. Service corridor under the seating bowl and concourse. Our giant entry back to the super barn at the north end. Again, you know, this is a really specifically designed building for what we do here in Oklahoma City for our agricultural equine events, but also being able to do multi-use events. And some of these areas are really remarkable, huge areas that enable our building to do things others just can't do. And underneath the opposite seating bowl where we're going to have animal return lanes and circulation. The upper concourse area where we have the grand stair that you can see below, where they're starting to get supporting infrastructure in for some of our wood ceilings and feature areas in that concourse. The bowl, when we were out there actually last week, they had completed almost all of the interior railing in that bowl, so they're sailing along really quickly. They're beginning to do wall framing, drywall and tile, and finishes will start going in the next few weeks. Another aspect that we've been able to add into this building is a really ease of maintenance. This building has stairways all the way up to the mechanical mezzanines and to exterior signage areas, so maintenance will be really easy in this building. And from the opposite end, north end, looking down through that bowl. They're working on finishing some of the catwalk and spotlight bays. So the building is moving along really quickly. If you have a chance to drive through, take a look, please do, because it will be dried in before you know it. I want to run through a few of these items on the change order. Most of them are very small, but nevertheless, I'll run through them. Item number 1 is discontinued ticket window displays. These go in the ticket windows just above so people can tell if they're open or closed. There was a manufacturer change. And the new product, the updated product, is a tiny bit more expensive, $5,000. Light pole access, these are the light poles along Gordon Cooper. We purchase and install the light poles to match the design of the rest on the campus. However, they are serviced by OG&E. They require handholds, so we had to add that. So about 18,000, some stormwater sewer inlet modifications. That site has a myriad of underground utilities all through it over generations of construction. We occasionally run into conflicts. There's a minor conflict where we need to modify some sewer infrastructure to bypass existing utilities. That's what that is. About 10,000 mechanical yard fence. We have the same condition on the backside of the building. We had fence supported by piers. However, in 2 areas, those piers conflict with some utilities that we found. So instead of reworking the utilities, we're going to put a grade beam and protect those utilities. So a minor change there of about 20,000. The big one here in this change order is a deduction. As you know, we are working on the design of the building called the Promenade. It is the connecting building between the new Coliseum and the Super Barn in the place of where the Nork currently stands. We have been working closely with the whole design team of Flintco to identify areas of our current project that may be impacted by the construction of that promenade. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to put in place any work now as part of the Coliseum that may be demolished or damaged during construction of the promenade. And that is exactly what this 140,000 roughly represents, is work that we don't need to do or shouldn't do so that we can save that money, and that will be picked up by the promenade project. Loading dock, soffit, tiny little piece of metal for some weather protection at the loading dock. Trash chute water supply, that was added so that the staff there at OKC Fair can clean out that trash chute from time to time. We also have a tile credit. Again, a manufacturer change led us to have to select another tile finish. That tile finish that we selected is actually a little less expensive, so we picked up a little there. And then a beverage dispenser credit is because Oklahoma State Fair Inc. has selected their beverage dispenser partner, and they are providing those dispensers to the project at their cost, so we've deducted that from the project. A little bit of signage access at the roof. Now that we do have our naming rights, we have some roof high signage on the west side of the Coliseum. We needed to have a roof hatch and a ladder to get to that to service it. Wireless dialers in the elevators, those are wireless phone connections versus landline connections. Adds a little bit, a higher level of security and surety that you can reach out should something happen in those elevators. And then we had a minor weather delay. As I mentioned, we did have quite a bit of rain days early this spring, and so we've added 12 days to Flintco's weather schedule. So total change order is minus 106,000 roughly. So in total, I'm horrible at math, so thankfully it's there for us. We're at about 556,000 below the original bid on this Coliseum project, which I believe is phenomenal, and it's a testament to how well the team, the entire consultant team and Flintco have worked together through this project day to day to continue to look for savings, and we will continue to do so until this is finished next spring.
That's fantastic.
Real quick look ahead, I did mention some of this. So we're going to be completing that steel and roof installation very quickly in the next 2 to 3 weeks. The exterior walls will be done in about a month. So we'll be dried in early to mid-August. We'll be very aggressively after all the interior finishes at that point. The sheetrock, tile, painting, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems are well underway already. All of the doors, and we'll begin, once we have a conditioned space, to start putting in millwork and final flooring. Escalator 1 and 2 will be happening very quickly. They actually already have one of those escalators positioned in the building, so we're going to start seeing significant interior infrastructure going in place very rapidly, and I think the building will start to take shape on the interior very quickly this fall. So maybe due for a tour relatively quickly. We're happy to accommodate should Mr. Todd want to do that. Any questions?
Any questions?
Sure.
Yeah.
What do we expect the newest completion date to be?
We expect now that the completion date is going to be approximately June 1st of 2025.
June 1st,
Yes.
not June 2nd, June 1st.
That June 1st is our current date. Now,
We'll hold you to it.
originally, that was April 12th. We've had, some weather delays, which are accommodated in that extension. However, the building will appear to be complete in late winter. There will be still some interior works happening, some signage, graphics, furnishing, seats going in, but when you drive by it, probably in January or February, it'll look like it's open, but we're obviously going to be still doing some work inside.
And then the promenade will be completed later. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, thank you so much for that update.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we need to approve the change order. Okay, motion passes, thank you. Moving on to item N, recommend approval of resolution approving amendment number 1 to the MAPS 4 Downtown Arena building upgrades, extending time to awarding contract base bid plus alternates 1 and 2, $2 million to win construction for $2,858,000.
So this is a project that you've seen twice before that we've rebid and different pieces, and it's come in over budget. It again came in over the MAPS budget. Escalating prices right now are a real problem, especially on these smaller projects. I know $3 million isn't a small amount, but in the grand scheme of things, this office remodel is small. We only had 2 bidders on this project. So remember, this is for additional offices for an expanding Thunder staff, but also ASM, the operator for Paycom, has people that are working in the old Cox Center, which we refer to as Prairie Surf. They have people in there, and if we're going to take that down for the new arena, they have to have office space. And Paycom will continue to operate, up to 5 years, maybe even beyond that. So this is for their office space. There's also some remodeling of the promoter room, which has to do with concerts, and some other spaces in there that has to do with the operation that's non-basketball related, that helps us draw better concerts in here. Now, if you'll notice on the on your memo, there's always a funding source on there, and there's the MAPS funding source, but there's also another funding source. This is being funded by $1 million out of the city manager's account that they use just for routine repairs and things over at Paycom. So they're kicking in also.
Okay, any questions?
This comes with the approval from the subcommittee.
Okay, any questions, comments? Not, I'd take a motion in a second. The motion passes, thank you. So some of you may be aware and some not, that MAPS 3 has completed their business, and so for the remaining projects that are just finishing up, they will be handled by this body, which is item O. Recommend final acceptance of the MAPS 3 Oklahoma City Convention Center corridor upgrades and placing maintenance bond into effect.
So if you're not familiar with the convention center, on the south side of the convention center, there is a corridor that connects the loading dock with the front of house. And that was put in there specifically so that if there was a big event going on in the exhibit hall, that they weren't taking tables and chairs through there. They were able to have another path to get around to the meeting rooms that are up front. When we designed this, we kept it pretty minimal because of budget concerns. And when I say minimal, it's covered, but the exterior was just a extruded metal. It's not a conditioned space. It was open to the wind, and it being just a corridor, it didn't seem to matter. Well, as we've gone 3-4 years into operations. They've started to use that for some storage of tables and chairs in there, and a lot of dust has continued to blow in there. So we did a project with some of the proceeds that was still in the convention center account. I feel like I'm having to reinvent MAPS 3 here. With the convention center account, to better enclose that. It's not 100% weather tight, but it's pretty close, and there's some fans to exhaust the air and keep it reasonably tolerable, cool in there. So that project has been completed, and this is for the final acceptance of that. It's probably more than what I needed for a final acceptance, but I want everybody to fully understand what they're voting.
We appreciate that. Yes, Shay?
I just have a quick question. So are subcommittees still approving these?
No, this stuff comes straight to you.
So this is the first time we're seeing it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Other questions? Not, I'll take a motion in a second. Cast your votes. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item P, recommend approval of resolution transferring $3,685,826 from the MAPS 3 Convention Center budget to the river sport improvements.
So this one will take a little explaining also. I gave you the financials for MAPS 3 so that you will be better informed on this. You can see where various money is sitting, and the convention center came in under budget, and we've had some money sitting in there. The River Sport was a MAPS 3 project. We're talking about the whitewater facility. It needs some repairs. It's been in operation for, about 7 years, something like that. So it needs some repairs to the system that holds what we call the rapid blocks, the blue blocks that you see that make the rapids. There's a system under there that's been completely submerged underwater, and it has, as expected, experienced some corrosion problems. So this item is to transfer money from the convention center line item that you see on there, the $5 million that's sitting there. And then also $685,000 for a study for additional improvements that will be used for some of the new events that are coming to town. There's so many more things that could be put into the whitewater facility and even that entire region. So the study will look at the whole region and do a master plan. So we're able to fund that. We will be transferring this money to Public Works, and Public Works will be executing the project. So it's really a city thing and not a MAPS thing, although we do have the money to fund that.
Okay. Any questions? Yes, Chelsea.
Just for clarity, basically this is MAPS 3 monies that haven't been spent, and we're just taking them from the one project to the other MAPS 3 project.
That's right.
Okay,
That's
thank
right.
you.
Anything else?
So after 8 years, this Unistrut system had to be replaced for $3 million. Will we have to do this again in another 8 years?
There's always that potential when you have something that's constantly underwater like that, but we will look at some other materials to try and prevent that, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions? Okay. If not, I will take a motion in a second. Please cast your votes. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item Q, recommend approval of resolution approving change order number 17 for the MAPS 3 Senior Health and Wellness Center, number 4, on Southwestern for an increase of $43,061 and authorizing use of excess Oklahoma City capital improvement sales tax collections and/or interest to fund the change order.
So you may be aware that we just opened Wellness Center 4, and what you'll see as we go along in this program is that there's always change orders at the end. Even though the facility is open, we still need things to help finish it up, so to speak. So Michael Seagroves is here for real quick presentation. Michael.
I got the hint.
on what all's included on this.
Just to bring everyone up to speed, and again, thank you for having me here. This facility is now open. There's the site plan and floor plans of what we've built with a pool, gymnasium, pickleball, fitness, public leasable spaces, a whole lot of social interaction spaces, and our walking track. There is the entry to the building. New signage is up and functional. Our lights are on, and we are all moving along with the programming. I've got a little information. You can see people already using the facility. Pickleball is, again, very popular. Pool has been popular, and our outside spaces, well, this was a little right before a storm, so no one was out there. They are very popular. On the change order, we are adding a sprinkler zone, adding some safety painting that the inspector wanted us to have, some plumbing corrections, relocating some shower controls for some better ADA access, and modifying some electrical circuits, and buying some pool equipment for exercise. Total of $43,061. And there's a note there that we are offsetting part of that change order. Through 17 change orders, we are at $43,061 on this one. Original budget was $13,946. We are currently going to be, with this change order, $14,497,687, and adding 25 days for the contractor to do the work. Our substantial completion date advances to July 12th, 2023. Contractor is aware that they are into LDs for that. Substantial completion was on May 16th of 2024. And before any questions, I just got a little information from the operator. They have to date sold 1,200 units of membership with 1,600 individual members so far. 18,000 check-ins since the day they opened, averaging 416, with a high of 784 on June 24th. They now have 19 land group exercise classes, 6 water exercise classes every week, and we'll be starting art classes as of this week.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that additional information.
Thank you.
And any questions or comments? Okay, great job.
Thank you.
So need a motion in a second. Please cast your votes. Motion passes, thank you. Moving on to item R, recommend approval of resolution approving amendment number 3 to architectural services contract with GSB for the MAPS 3 Senior Health and Wellness Center number 4 for an increase of $80,000 and authorizing use of excess Oklahoma City capital improvement sales tax collections and or interest in the amount of $80,000 to fund amendment number 3 and $550,000 for additional amenities for the facility.
So this is an amendment for GSB, who Michael Seagroves, you just saw him, he's with GSB. The construction contract took longer than was anticipated. As he mentioned, the contractor knows that he's in liquidated damages, but that extends the effort by the architect more than what was contractually approved on there. So we have to extend their time so that they can do what we call construction administration. They're still going out to the site. They're going to weekly construction meetings. They're looking at pay claims, all those answering questions. They're still working much more than what they'd originally planned. So there's an increase of $80,000 in there. And that also includes some additional work that we're planning, or that we hope to have approved. We found that with these senior centers, pickleball is exceptionally popular, and what it does is it takes up any kind of basketball activity in the gym. This facility is unique in that it's on a pretty big site, and there's a whole lot of room back behind there. If you saw that site plan, you can see all the room, and we're proposing that we approve some outdoor pickleball courts out there. So I've bundled all this in there to make sure that everybody understands. Also cross-court basketball goals, and there's a couple other small things that the operators asked for. But this includes that design, and I've also bundled in there a approval of what we estimate to be about $550,000 for those additional improvements. And that will come out of what we have the luxury of in MAPS 3. Since collections have ended, we know how much excess collections we have, and we don't have that luxury on this board yet with MAPS 4, but we do with MAPS 3. And I can tell you that as we sit right now, there is $1.9 million in excess collections that's unobligated. And that's what I want to take this $550,000 and the $80,000 out of to pay for it.
Okay, any questions? No? Okay, then I take a motion in a second. And thank you for going through that explanation and telling us about the excess funds. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item S, recommend approval of ratifying and approving amenda numbers 1, 2, and 3 on the MAPS 3 Union Station renovation and rejecting bids.
As part of the park, Union Station is there. It wasn't originally included as part of the project, but because of excess collections at one point, council decided to allocate, I think it was $17 million approximately to work on Union Station, and the construction amount is about $12 million in there. We had an architect put this together, we estimated it, and again, because of crazy prices right now, it came in about 50% over budget, and we can't do that. So we're having to reject these bids, or I'm asking you to reject these bids, and we're gonna go back and trim some scope and see what we can do with the money we have and still make that a good facility that we're able to have some offices. The park operator needs offices. We also want some event space in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, any questions? No? Okay, then I'll take a motion in a second. Cast your votes. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item T, recommend approval of resolution authorizing the use of city annual contract with Atlas Paving Company to construct sidewalks along Southwestern Avenue for a contract price of $139,698.39, using the remaining MAPS 3 sidewalk budget of $31,209 and excess Oklahoma City capital improvement collections in the amount of $108,489.39.
So Public Works has a unit price contract with 3 or 4 contractors. It was a bid project, and it sits out there, and we're able to use that for projects like this, small projects that you don't necessarily want to go take all the time to bid, a quarter mile of sidewalk or even less than that. So we're asking to use that contract. There is a piece of sidewalk on Southwestern that does not allow people to access a bus station in that area. And we're asking that we use some of the excess collections, not only the remaining sidewalk money that we have in there, but some excess collections to build this sidewalk.
Okay, any questions on this item? Okay, if not, I take a motion in a second to approve. Cast your votes. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 3, discussion items. Do we have any items for discussion?
I don't have anything else.
Okay. Items 4, Citizen Advisory Board Subcommittee reports. Any reports? Anything to share? I'll just share with, on innovation, we got to tour the new Innovation Hall yesterday, and it's really going to be a phenomenal structure. And I think going through and the explanation of how this space is going to be used in connection with the other buildings around it, it's going to be incredibly additive for our city. Really excited about that. Moving on to item F, update status of MAPS 4 program.
You saw a lot today. We have a whole lot going on. I want to remind you that bus stations are under construction. Sidewalks started construction. I know there's other things, but there's a whole lot in design. I'm glad that we have Diversion Hub on the agenda today. There's just a whole lot getting ready to roll out.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about maybe 8 groundbreakings.
Yeah, this is a busy year.
Yeah, it's going to be busy. And thank you for all that you and your staff do. Comments by board, staff, and citizens. Do we have any citizens that signed up to speak today? No? Any comments by board? Hope everybody had a happy and safe July 4th. Anything from staff? No? Okay. Not item 7, we are adjourned.